Welcome to the story of Oedipus Rex. It's the story of a man who tries to deny fate and escape a prophecy, and instead ends up marrying and having children with his mother. Interesting story. Probably a couple morals behind it. So, I'm Hannah. This is Anna.
Hola.
And today we're going to be talking about Oedipus.
Some pretty messed up stuff.
Yeah, I mean, originally he leaves his home because he thinks that his parents who raised him, who are his adoptive parents, are the people who this prophecy is about, when it's really about his birth parents.
Who are in a completely other kingdom.
So, that's interesting. But I mean, one of the things that we talked about at one point was, there's this whole scene where Tiresias, the blind seer man, explains to Oedipus exactly what's going on, and Oedipus, who still has his sight at the time,
vehemently denies it time and time again, and even threatens to have Tiresias thrown in jail because of it.
He just can't see the truth.
Yeah.
However, Tiresias, who is blind, can see the truth, which is a little ironic.
Oh yeah, no, that's like the definition of irony right there.
Yeah. So, and then later on in the story, after Oedipus, finally comes to grips with the truth that he,
Grips with reality.
Yeah, he came to grips with the reality that he had kids with his mother, and that's
He's
really not
so
right.
disgusted that he stabs his own eyes out.
Which, I mean, I think that was a little bit of an overreaction. But
at the time, I don't know. It might have been a reasonable reaction for just finding out at that moment.
However, it does kind of go with the symbolism that now that he can see the truth, he can't see the real world because he gouged out his eyes. So, our role here on this lovely podcast is to mediate intelligently and stylishly between a work and its audience, according to Mendelssohn. So, we're trying to kind of give life to the Oedipus tale, which I'd really rather not give life to, but
yeah.
seeing as that's kind of the assignment.
Keep it as a story.
Yeah, it's a good story. It would be nice to keep it as a story. And of course, Anna, your favorite subject, Sigmund Freud.
Oh, I hate him so much.
So Sigmund Freud had the theory of the Oedipal complex, which is that all boys at a young age love their mother and have bizarre sexual fantasies about their mothers, which I am not a boy, so I don't fall into the category, but I don't think that's true.
I'm somewhat concerned for Sigmund Freud's mother in that situation. I wonder what her reaction was when she read her son's theoretical.
Yeah,
Oh my
I
God.
mean, I don't know if he was going off personal experience.
Or if he just really liked this story for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, Oedipus, he's a very human character. He's somewhat relatable, which is kind of scary.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of that.
No.
But I mean, it's interesting to read the story because you read it and you hear about this guy, he hears this prophecy. He wants to get away from it. Now, if I heard a prophecy that said I was going to sleep with one of my parents, I'd want to get out of there. As far away as possible. But I mean, the prophecy was that he'd kill his father and marry his mother. Why didn't he become a monk?
Why didn't he just vow to never have kids? Or just vow to never marry?
If you don't get married,
Problem solved.
if you don't kill anybody, problem solved. It's not an issue. But no, he goes out and, in a fit of rage, murders somebody on the road.
Murders a stranger.
I mean, who does that? Honestly.
I don't know, man, I'd love to live back in ancient Greece where you could just kill somebody for getting pissed off and face absolutely no consequences.
I mean, really, you'd think instead of, promoting him to king, they would kill him.
Well, then again, they didn't really know he killed their king at the time.
That's true.
So.
And of course, because they didn't know that, and he didn't know that, he condemns himself to a life of misery by being so vehemently against the killer of
It's even
the
more
former king.
ironic.
It is so ironic. I mean, really, the tale of Oedipus is just a
just-
tale of irony.
It's like a long definition of irony.
Yeah, I mean, if you are looking in the dictionary for irony, Oedipus is a very, very good reference point there.
Oh, yeah. So.
So, if you'd like to go on with your theory about Sigmund Freud's Oedipal complex, Anna.
Okay, well, here's why it's wrong. Well, my theory is that when boys become, like, attached to their mother, as Freud says, or it's not out of any sort of, like...
Lust?
It's not out of any sort of lust. It's more because usually in times past, you don't see this very much in modern day, but in times past it was the mother figure who was the emotional one and the caring type to the child, whereas the father figure was far more distant. So of course, the child's going to grow more attached to their mother than they are their father, who has shown them, like, little to no affection in their early childhood. I don't think it has anything to do with lust. I think it's just that the kid is going to be attached to their mother because they're the ones that are showing them affection. So of course they are.
I think the most ironic part about it, though, is Freud calls it an Oedipal complex. However, Oedipus didn't know that it was his mother. It's not like he was purposely going to marry and have children with his mother. That was not his goal. He never mentioned anything about having any sort of feelings towards his adoptive mother, the one who raised him.
Yeah, and you think with the whole Oedipal complex that Sigmund Freud's talking about, he would have feelings for his adopted mother, not his biological one, who he didn't know was his mother.
Exactly.
But he doesn't.
I mean, it's terribly ironic that it's called an Oedipal complex, just because although Oedipus did, have sex with his mom, it wasn't his goal. It was not... And if somebody has an Oedipal complex, it's more like that's what they want, which is sketchy.
Extremely so.
But, I mean, it's weird. It all has to do with, like, what the person involved wants. And I think that calling it an Oedipus complex is really more of a misnomer.
Yeah.
Because, I mean...
Definitely.
Somebody with an Oedipus complex is
someone who lusts after the person who raised them.
Which is really
Which
not
is not what
natural.
Oedipus... that's just freaky on so many levels. But, which is not what Oedipus did.
No. Oedipus specifically left the place where he was raised to avoid such a fate.
Yeah.
So, I mean, had Oedipus stayed and actually killed his adoptive parents, or his adoptive father, and then married his adoptive mother...
That could have been called an Oedipal complex,
yes, but he didn't. He specifically left so it wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
He was trying to avoid it at all costs. So it's a total misnomer.
Name for, it's a very bad name for that kind of whatever he wants to call it, psychological theory, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, the story of Oedipus, it's a story, like most stories are, and it was something that somebody made up to give morals, don't try to escape fate, I'm assuming, was one of the big ones at the time, especially since, this is
Ancient Greece.
And they like that sort of
huge thing. Yeah.
Fate was huge. If you tried to go against fate, that was not something that they agreed with. Yeah. They thought fate was an absolute. There was no way to escape it, and trying to was just futile.
Yeah.
There was no reason to even attempt.
Mm-hmm.
So Oedipus trying to thwart fate and then completely and utterly failing miserably is kind of...
It's like a lesson. It's like a fable for ancient Greeks.
It's the moral of the story.
Yeah.
The moral of the story is, don't try to escape your fate. It's going to happen no matter what you do, no matter how hard you try to avoid it.
And it could be so much worse if you try to avoid it.
And I mean, another part of that is, you can't really go off an oracle's word for word. They're not going to be accurate.
They're always going to be vague. That's like their thing.
That is their thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, all in all, moral of Oedipus, stop trying to escape your fate. If you're blind...
You can see...
If you're blind, you can see reality better. I think that's probably because you're not focusing on what's in front of your eyes, but rather the meaning behind it.
Mm-hmm.
So, That's the story of Oedipus.
Anyway, see ya!